Good morning, ladies. We are now live in the Art of Conscious Relating Facebook group. Welcome to day 3 of this masterclass, which is all about looking at boundaries, the sacred nature of boundaries. And this morning, we are going to be looking at both sides of the boundaries coin. So we're going to be looking at the ways in which our boundaries are kind of a little bit shaky and a little bit unclear. I call those leaky boundaries, and how we end up leaking energy left, right, and center because we don't feel safe to use our no, or we worry about how other people will respond if we use our no, right? And we are also going to be looking at the other side of the boundaries coin, which is, of course, all related to the yes, stepping more courageously into what are we saying yes to in life? What experiences do we desire to have? What ways do we want to confront our edges so that we get to live a more expansive life, right? So these are the two sides of the boundaries coin that we're going to be looking at today on masterclass number 3. When you come on, do say hello. Let me know that you're here. Interact with me in the comments as much as you possibly can, because it helps me to know that you are with me and that you're following me and that everything is working fine. I can see that somebody said good morning. Now, because I'm streaming again through StreamYard to Facebook so that I can show you some slides a bit later on, like I did yesterday, to clarify some teaching points. When you comment, when I'm looking at my screen, it'll just say Facebook user, unless you've given StreamYard permission. So although it's slightly arduous, if you would be willing to just put your name first and then the comment, that massively helps me. Beatrice, I can see that it's you because you've obviously given your permission to StreamYard, so I can see it's you. Belinda, thanks so much for putting your name. All right. So far on this program, Claire Gallagher's here. Fantastic. Fellow Yoni art lover. I know exactly who you are. Somebody else has just put morning lovely, but if you put your name, I know who you are. I can say good morning back to you because I'm streaming through StreamYard. Hazel, amazing. Thank you for being here, Hazel. Always a joy to have you on these masterclasses. Kerry, yeah, it's absolutely fine. If you make some of it today, Kerry, and then catch up later on the rest, that is absolutely fine. Just do what you can with me live and then catch up later. While we're on that topic, just to remind you, this is a pop-up group, okay? This is a pop-up 4-day masterclass group. So the videos, the masterclasses will be available to you for a limited time. They will be available for a week. So that means that on Thursday, midnight next week, the videos come down, the masterclasses come down. The reason for that is that the whole point of a pop-up group is that we all pop in together. We bring our full energy, we watch the masterclasses in step with each other, and we energetically do some powerful work as a group, and then we hop out. Okay, so just bear that in mind. If you haven't managed to watch the first one, the conscious communication one, or the second one, the drama triangle one, they will be there until midnight Thursday. Okay, so hop on them if you haven't yet. I'm curious to know, for those of you who have done the conscious communication one and for those of you who have done the drama triangle one, what the biggest aha moments were for you. And please do feel absolutely free to share that in the comments now or to do a post in the group. The space is available to you, and I am available to you for this period of time that we're in this container together for this week. And whatever you choose to share and however fully you choose to engage, I will meet you there. I will respond to you. I will do a little bit of, one-to-one messaging support with you and stuff like that. So please feel free to utilize the space to the absolute best of your advantage while we're here. Okay, so let me know in the comments what's been the big things that have come up so far on the previous two. And the other thing that I'm curious to know about is, as far as the boundaries topic, Most of you will probably be aware that you probably lean one way or the other, right? So probably either you've got the leaky boundary issue where you give away your time, your support, your expertise, your presence, your money perhaps to people, and you sometimes end up feeling like you've overgiven or you've been over plundered by people and you haven't known how or when to say no. So let me know in the comments if you're a leaky boundaries person, because then I know how to talk to you more specifically to help you. And then the other side of it, which is where I lean more, is daring to lean more into the expanded yes. In other words, daring to say yes to life, yes to new experiences, yes to invitations, like yes to opportunities, 555. That may be the side that you're more needing to focus on, or it might be both in different situations. Claire Jones is here. Welcome, Claire Jones. And Claire G, my arty friend, is saying leaky. Yeah, just comment leaky or tight. And then I'll know which side of the boundaries story you are on. Okay. So, Hazel, I have boundary issues with both at different times. Yeah, I think we all do. And it's really good to acknowledge if it's both. Beatrice is saying she's got the leaky ones. Okay. So there are holes in the bucket. When we've got leaky boundaries, there are holes in the bucket that we just need to learn to plug up. And I can give you the tools to do that. Belinda's saying a bit of both. Okay. Yeah. So I'd like to take you back now to what I call the magical child years of your life. Okay. When you were little, when you were 2, 3, and up to 4 years old. At that stage in your life, you didn't have boundary issues. Okay. At that stage in your life, the yes and the no were naturally very clearly in place, right? Because we're born sovereign. We are born sovereign. So we are born knowing very clearly in our body what feels like a yes and what feels like a no. You will very rarely see a 3-year-old when you ask them if they would like to eat something saying that they don't mind. Yeah? If you put some food in front of a 3-year-old, either they want it or they don't want it. If somebody walks into a room and the 3-year-old meets the grandparent or a relative or whoever who's just walked into the room, if the child wants to hug them, they will naturally do it. If the child doesn't want to hug them, they will naturally not do it. They will often cling to the mother's leg if they feel a hug is coming that they don't want. Okay? So the very young child that you were knew exactly what was a yes and what was a no. There was none of this doubt. There was none of this uncertainty. There was none of this murkiness between the yes and the no that as adults we're now trying to navigate. Okay? So this morning, I'm going to walk us through how it came to be the case that we got so confused so that we can start to clean up this whole thing and get the clarity back that we had when we were little. Okay. So we talked yesterday, didn't we, on the Drama Triangle Masterclass at the beginning about my friend's 3-year-old daughter who repeatedly told my friend, her mother, that she didn't want to go to nursery, right? And when she told her mother in a straightforward, honest way that that was a no for her, that she did not want to go, we talked yesterday about how that was met with coercion. Come on, you have to go. It's all right. It was met with gaslighting. You do like nursery. You love nursery, which is very confusing for the child in the moment that they are very clear in the no, I don't like it, to be overridden and told by an adult, yes, you do like it. Does this make sense? So when adults told us to like things that we didn't like, or told us to do things that we didn't want to do, and because we believed in their authority, that's how we started to become confused about what was a yes and what was a no. Let me know if this is making sense for you. So we talked yesterday about how my friend's daughter quickly learned that when she said she had a stomach ache, that was met with a yes. That was met with, yes, of course you can stay at home. Yes, of course you don't have to go to nursery. If you're sick, you get to stay home. You get to stay in bed. You get to snuggle. You get to have one-on-one time with mummy, which obviously little children love if they've got siblings. So the child quickly learns that when I say I'm sick or I'm in some kind of victimhood state, it's much easier to get my needs met than when I just say a clean no. Yeah, Claire's saying, oh my gosh, I do this to my 5-year-old, I think, about school. Yeah, parents do it. Of course we do, because we have to go to work. We've got other commitments. It's normal. But for the purposes of you understanding how you have become confused between your yes and your no, or challenged in how you can convey that to other people, it's really important that we go back to the childhood years, your formative years, and find how and when we lost this clear connection with our yes and our no. Okay. So when I was about 4, so I was 3 or 4, when I was still in this magical child energy of knowing exactly what I wanted and what I didn't want, I used to go to my Auntie Barbara's house, who was a childminder. And I absolutely loved going to Auntie Barbara's house. Auntie Barbara's house was very, very different to my house. My house with my parents was very quiet. There were no children to play with. My parents were older. They were very serious. They were always reading. There was often a very depressing mood in the house. It was not fun. Auntie Barbara's house, on the other side, was full of children because she was a childminder. There was lots of hustle and bustle. There was her daughter, Julie, who I thought was very glamorous, who was about 20 at the time. Julie used to come in her white stilettos. There were plenty of other children to play with. There were fairies at the bottom of the garden to go and find. There were bicycles and tricycles everywhere. We could watch Button Moon on the TV all afternoon. And best of all, we used to eat fish and chips on a Wednesday. And then we used to snuggle under Auntie Barbara's bingo wings because she was very huge and she could accommodate lots of children under her armpits. And I loved being at Auntie Barbara's house. And there was one day when my mum came to collect me after work from Auntie Barbara's house and said, right, it's time to go home. And I said, I don't want to go home. And she said, well, it's time to go home, so get your shoes on. And I said, but I don't want to go home. I like it here. I like it at Auntie Barbara's house. I want to play. I want to stay here, the other children. And no doubt, maybe my mum had had quite a stressful day at work. She was tired. She was head of languages at a busy high school in Liverpool. You know, she'd had a stressful commute. She just wanted to get me in the car. So she was like, get your shoes. I've told you once. I've told you twice. We're going. Get your shoes on. And her tone was starting to become more and more kind of threatening, right? Anyway, I was still in my magical child energy, meaning I was still connected with my yes and my no and my sovereignty, and my no that day was really, really strong. So when she tried to force the shoe on my foot, I got the other shoe and whacked her round the face with it as hard as I could and said, no, want to stay here. Right? At which point, my mother was absolutely furious. No doubt feeling quite humiliated in front of the childminder that her own child was so adamant that I didn't want to go home. So I'm imagining there was a certain amount of humiliation and embarrassment that came up. And then that embarrassment was absolutely compounded by me having the audacity to whack her over the face with a shoe. Okay. Now, I don't recall what happened exactly in the aftermath of that episode, but I do know that both my mum was furious with me, and Auntie Barbara was shocked and disappointed because she'd never seen me do something like that before. Okay. And I was severely chastised. I was frightened of my mum when she was angry, and no doubt she probably had a finger in my face and she was probably saying to me, "Don't you dare do that ever again. Don't you dare." Right? Because that was the tone that she had when she was angry. So that when you're little and you sense that the parent is so angry that that tone becomes very like aggressive, it's a trauma to the nervous system, right? And that day and the aftermath of the punishment that ensued that day was so severe that that was the last time I ever dared to openly challenge my mum's authority again. Right? That was the last time. It was almost like something in my soul got crushed that day. I got so shamed and chastised for my no, or the expression of my no, that a code dropped into my consciousness, which basically said, you must acquiesce to your mother's authority for your own survival. Does this make sense? So I'm not suggesting it was in any way right or proper for me to have smacked her over the face with a shoe. But whatever was going on for me in my own little 3-4-year-old mind, I felt so strongly that I wanted to stay at Barbara's house. And I felt so strongly that I didn't want to go back to my mum's house. And nobody was listening to me. That no doubt the shoe smacking episode was the culmination of the frustration of not being heard, right? Thanks, Belinda, of not having my primary yes or no honored, listened to, and recognized. Yeah. And maybe if she'd had the conscious parenting tools in place at the time to have reasoned with me a bit more rather than just threatening me that if I didn't get in the car, something bad was going to happen. If I hadn't, if she'd been able to say to me, I totally hear you that you want to stay at Barbara's and you can definitely come back to Barbara's again tomorrow. And when we go home, we're going to have pizza. Like if she'd been able to talk to me in that way, it may not have resulted in what it resulted in. But it was a combination of my no not being listened to and her feeling humiliated and ashamed that she was being defied in front of another adult. It was like the perfect cocktail of an outburst that fundamentally changed my connection with my no and my expression with my no. Because from that point on, I was clearly associating my no with punishment, exile, i.e., go to your bedroom and don't come down, and being emotionally disconnected from, i.e., my mum not talking to me and being furious with me. Does that make sense? So what we learned from a young age was the other side of a clear declaration of my no is punishment, humiliation, exile, emotional disconnection from parent or teacher or whoever. All of this is a kind of death to the child's sense of self, sense of belonging, and sense of safety. So what happened was that we traded our sovereignty for belonging. We made a kind of transactional agreement around the age of 4. Okay, I get it now. You're in charge. You decide what's a yes. You decide what's a no. And I need to go along with that so that I don't get punished. Does this make sense? So still to this day, we are carrying this fear of, if I say a clear no to somebody, whether it's your best friend, whether it's your partner, whether it's your child, whether it's your sister, whoever you are most afraid of disappointing or making angry, The fear of saying no to people now is very much still bound up with this fear of, if I say no, I will disappoint this person that I love, or I will anger this person that I love. And on the other side of that, they will find a way to punish me energetically. There will be a price to pay for my no. Yeah. So we're still holding on to that code. And that explains in many ways why we find it so bloody difficult to just say no. And Claire's saying, I don't remember what age I was, but I remember that feeling that I was changed, that I was oppressed, that I could not be myself. Yes, I can feel that, Claire. Can literally feel that in my body as I'm reading it. And Hazel, I feel that self-silencing even now. Absolutely, absolutely. So as we move, ladies, now more and more back into our sovereignty and back into alignment with who we truly are, this boundaries work becomes a practice. It really, really becomes a practice, and the universe will keep giving you material and opportunities to practice it until it gets more and more comfortable and more authentic to you to state your no clearly, regardless of how it lands. Yeah. So let's fast forward to me now. I'm not 3 anymore, not 4 anymore, but there is still a residue of that code within me, as there will be a residue of that code within you. Yeah. So in the last few days alone, 3 things have happened where I have needed to use my no. And there is still a little ripple of challenge around that. Yeah. So, for example, on Wednesday afternoon, there was a training session at work that was a very important one, my day job, because we're having an Ofsted inspection soon. And all staff on Wednesday afternoon were expected to attend that 4-hour meeting, right? But I'm only part-time. I only work 2.5 days a week. So I go at 1 o'clock on a Wednesday. That's my cutoff point. This week, our masterclass was starting on Thursday, right? So I had a lot of things to do and to organize and to prepare for our masterclass. And I needed that Wednesday afternoon time for myself. And I knew that my manager, Tony, would be embarrassed if I wasn't there. Because even part-time staff, if it's an important meeting, are expected to adjust our other commitments to be there, especially if it's an Ofsted inspection. And I had to dig deep into myself. And essentially, the choice was, do I prioritize myself or do I prioritize my manager? Do I honor my own needs and desires or do I sacrifice those to please him? That was the choice available to me, right? Now, I'm very fond of my manager. He's very good to me. He does me a lot of favors, so I like to be good to him too. This is somewhat transactional, but this is the 3D world that we're in the, corporate world. So there was a part of me that was like, I don't want to let him down. I don't want to disappoint him. I know he'll be embarrassed that I'm not there. But the point is, I didn't let that voice and that side of me win. Because there will always be like both sides, right, that get activated in you in these situations where there's the voice telling you what you want to do and there's the voice telling you what you think the other person wants you to do. There will always be that sort of duality in these situations. So it's not that duality or that preoccupation with what other people might want from you would ever necessarily not be there anymore, but it's what you do with that when it does come up, right? So with him, I messaged him and I said to him, I'm really sorry. I'm not going to be there today. I know it's really important to you. I know it's an important meeting. And I have something important that I need to focus on this afternoon for my own business. This is conscious communication. It would have been easy for me to lie. I could have said to him, got a dentist appointment. I'm so sorry. There's nothing I can do. Could have said I had a medical appointment. That would have been the easy way out. But as I drop deeper and deeper into my own sovereignty and my own authenticity, it is harder and harder for me to even slightly conceal the truth. It's so important to me to share the truth, and I am willing to accept whatever consequences come from that. It doesn't mean that there isn't a slight feeling inside me of like, well, will there be a punishment from him? The other side of me saying, no, I'm not coming to the meeting. Will he be different with me next week? Will I have lost, quote unquote, some favor with him by saying I wouldn't be there? It's possible. But my bigger commitment now is to myself and my truth, and to have enough respect for other people to not conceal that truth in any way if I can possibly avoid it. Does this make sense? Claire, I have a little pact with my 11-year-old girl about her making good conscious decisions, but I'm always here to support her and guide her. I felt oppressed from parents and almost trapped in my childhood years, and I want my daughter to believe in herself and decision making and to be able to know what she does and doesn't want. It's not easy though. Children can make the craziest decisions. Yeah, I know. But it's incredible that you are doing that work with her, Claire, to help her to come to her own decisions and to support that and to honor her sovereignty like as much as you can, you know, within reason, because as a parent, there's always going to be things where you have to override their desires because of, you know, you ultimately your job is to keep them safe, right? So that's always going to be a dilemma, but the very fact that you're doing that is incredible. Belinda, oh, this happened to me recently where I wasn't heard by a friend and I had to say you didn't hear and listen. It was met by her telling me I was being too sensitive. This felt very uncomfortable. Tears were behind my eyes. I continued with clearly saying this is how I feel and it's important I say it as you're my dear friend and this is important to me. Yeah, exactly. So it's all just like having that courage, Belinda. And even the fact that like you felt the tears behind your eyes and you really like had the courage to reconvey how important it was to you to speak your truth, even though it wasn't difficult. It wasn't easy, sorry. Like that's incredible. And reinforcing to her that because she's your friend, it matters to you to share these things with her. That's really good. That's exactly what I was teaching on Thursday in the Conscious Communication Masterclass, is affirming the person and affirming the sense of connection. Like we're in this together. This is how I feel. And I'm sharing it with you because I love you. You're my friend. I care about our relationship. And that is such a powerful place to then share something that feels more sensitive, right? Because it cushions it for the other person. So I'm going to give you one more example that happened to me in the last few days of something where I had to say no and it wasn't comfortable. And I had to practice conscious communication skills to convey to the other person why it didn't feel comfortable. And this is never easy, but this is the path that I've chosen. And I'm imagining if you're here today, it's the path that you are also choosing, right? Is to step more and more into radical honesty and transparency. So somebody who I have done some courses with, some trainings with, who's also developing an online business, somebody who I very much love and care for and admire. I mean, we just know each other in an online context, but what she's doing is incredible. And sometimes she will tag me or ask me to comment on a post or to like a post or kind of essentially direct me to respond to something she shared in a certain type of way, right? Now, there is a difference between when we ask for support with things in a way that just feels very straightforward, and if you can support me with this post, that'd be great. And there's a different energy that we can sometimes feel, and sometimes we can all do this, whereby I can remember, for example, like times when say if I've had a birthday party and I've invited certain friends, and if they've not come, they've not said yes to my invitation, like I've made it mean something, right? I've made it mean that they don't care. I've made it mean that I'm not important to them. I've made it mean that I'm more invested in the friendship than they are. So sometimes we can all do this thing where we invite somebody to do something, or we make a request, and then if that request isn't met, we feel some kind of resentment, or we feel some kind of like, you don't care about me, and we start making things mean things that don't necessarily mean things. Yeah. And sometimes with this lady who sometimes asks me to like and comment on her posts, I have sometimes felt that energy of expectation, right? That energy of like, I need you to do this. And if you don't do this, it means X, Y, Z. It means that you're not supporting me, or it means that I'm supporting you more than you're supporting me, and it's not fair, right? So sometimes I'm feeling this energy from her, whether it's intentional or not. I'm sure it's not, but I've felt it. And so when she asked me a few days ago, tagged me and asked me to comment on a certain post, in my body, I felt that kind of contraction of like, oh God, I'm being asked again to comment or say something or do something. And if I don't, she's going to make it mean that I don't care, or I'm not being supportive. And it feels like there's an energetic string here, right? Now, when we're in these kind of scenarios, we've kind of got, well, in this case, I had 3 options. Yeah. Option 1 was, well, I could just do it. I could just brace myself and type fantastic or amazing and do the thing that she's asking me to do. Because after all, it's a very simple thing she's asking me to do. But somehow I couldn't, because I felt like if I didn't, there was going to be some kind of consequence. And so I didn't feel free to do it off of my own accord. Does this make sense? So option 1, even though I thought this would be the easiest thing to just do it, I couldn't. Option 2 could have been just ignore it, pretend that I haven't seen this tag. I could easily get away with that, saying I've got a masterclass, that I'm busy. But that didn't feel the most loving or honoring or honest thing that I could have done. So option 3, which is usually the trickiest option, is to speak your truth, right? To tell the person what's coming up and how you're feeling. So that's what I did. I sent her a voice note. It wasn't comfortable, but it felt like the most loving and the most transparent thing that I could do out of the 3 options. And I said to her, I love you. I support you. I see what you're doing, and it's fantastic. And I am 100% behind you. And I like to feel free to comment or respond when it's naturally coming to me to do that, without feeling like there might be a flip side if I don't. I want to feel free to support you in a more expansive way. And I'd like you to try and trust in that more. Yeah. So it's reaffirming to her, I'm here, I care, I support you. And it's a no, it's an energetic no for me to feel like I'm being told when to respond and how and where. Does it make sense? So these conversations, when the no comes up, they're not easy, because we're afraid we're going to disappoint the person. We're afraid we're going to make them angry. But in the end, in my experience, it is absolutely the kindest thing to do, because it helps the person to see. Sometimes sometimes it's actually really helpful for all of us to have somebody on the receiving end of something that we're asking for, to say, actually, this is how it's feeling to be on the receiving end. Sometimes that can be not always a comfortable mirror, but a helpful one. Does it make sense? As we're moving more into sovereignty, like honoring our own yes and honoring our own no, like part of this up leveling is having the courage to model that to other people. Like, this is what it looks like to be courageous in the way you communicate. And it helps other people to up level as well. So although it's not easy, it is, when you do these things, when you have the courage to respond in these honest ways, but loving ways, you are helping the collective up-leveling process that we're all going through at the moment. Okay. So that is essentially the no side of the boundaries scenario. Now, on the program that I'm going to be running in May, it's a 10-week program. We are, of course, going to have the opportunity to go way deeper into actively working with whatever boundary stuff is coming up for you in your life and role playing it out, looking at the language, looking at the tweaks, looking at the energetic tweaks needed. Because I promise you that when you learn to say your clear no and your clear yes, and people feel that you are not operating from a strings attached energy, people respond to you in a completely different way. You are going to be absolutely amazed by that. And what I'm able to do for you on this masterclass is I'm able to drop for you almost like like a cheese tasting thing at a market stall, right? Like an artisan market. On the masterclass, I'm able to drop for you like little samples of these codes. But some of you have been like asking what's happening next and how you can continue with me. So I just want to give you like a little bit of information about the 10-week program coming up soon, which is going to be absolutely amazing. And that's where you're going to have the opportunity to just go really into a deep dive with me around all of this stuff and really start to see like the transformations happening. So let's just look a little bit at like maybe what your starting point is now and what's brought you to this masterclass with me now is maybe like you find it challenging to say to people, whether it's your partner, your friends, your clients, or even life itself, like what you do desire, what you do want, in case when you dare to risk that, you're met with a no, or you're met with a rejection, or you end up feeling disappointed. Yeah. Quite a lot of you, when you joined the masterclass, said that the main thing that you were needing to work on is like how to expand your edges safely and to live more fully and more wholeheartedly. And that is something that we're really going to be able to delve deeply into on the program itself, on the 10-week program. Some of you are probably really in a space of struggling to speak your truth or share triggers with family members, friends, clients when things come up. And again, that's all stuff that I can work with you on the program. Struggling to say no, which is what we've been talking about this morning, a fear of disappointing people or being abandoned by people when we say no. And the other thing that might be relevant now for you is like struggling to communicate clearly online within your business. If you're an entrepreneur or if you're somebody who has a Facebook presence, like struggling to communicate clearly what you offer and most specifically the value in what you offer so that people actually want to come and work with you and invest in you. So this is all stuff that we're going to be looking at on the 10-week program. When we don't know how to do these things, when we don't know how to speak our truth fully, to honor our boundaries, to convey clearly to people what our work is, what our magic is, what we're about, we lose out on the opportunity to connect with people in the most clean, beautiful, and heart-centered way that we could. It blocks us from knowing what genuine intimacy feels like with the people that we care about most. It stops us from attracting soulmates, soul-aligned friends, and soul-aligned clients when we're not clearly able to be fully in the truth of who we are. Yeah. And the more radiantly and the more magnificently you can show up as your most authentic self, the more you will see every aspect of your life start to absolutely blossom from there. So I want to give you a little snapshot of what you will get from the 10-week program for those of you who would like to continue this journey with me. Some of you have already made it clear that you do. For those of you who don't know about the program, I'm just going to give you some of the key things that you will get from the 10-week program, where we have a much more spacious container to walk together. You are going to learn how to build intimacy in your personal and client-based relationships in ways that are going to be so transformational for you and for them. You're going to learn how to expand more fully into the most magical and courageous version of yourself. This next one is super potent. You're going to learn how to turn triggers into the most incredible portals to intimacy. That is huge. You're going to learn to express your truth and your emotions using language that other people can actually receive. That is huge. You're going to learn how to create boundaries with people that, instead of pushing them away, actually has the opposite effect and creates the most incredible safety, trust, and respect between you, your family members, your friends, and your clients. You're going to learn who genuinely deserves to have a seat at the table in your life, meaning you are going to really fine-tune your ability to attract the people and screen out the people who need to be screened out, so that the people closest to you are the ones who actually fully believe in your magic, your potential, your power, who can honor you in all of your different emotions and all of your different sides and love you unconditionally. This is so important for your well-being, to be surrounded by people who can do that for you. And finally, we're going to really look at the language of how you're communicating on social media. I'm going to help you to use language which helps other people to really know who you are, what you're about, what your unique offerings are, and to translate that into actual sales for those of you who are working online. So you will get 10 modules on conscious communication, sacred boundaries. We've just scratched the surface on this masterclass. I am going to give you every aspect of the toolkit of what you need to know for life, to serve you in your relationships for life, business and personal. You will get weekly masterclasses, 2 per week for the duration of the program. You will get 6 group coaching calls, which are interactive, where you get to bring to me all of the stuff that you want to work with, and we can work really intensely to get rapid transformation for you in your relationships and your communication skills and boundaries. You get one-to-one voice note support from me, which will absolutely change the game, because you will get to have intimate access to me throughout the 10 weeks. And that will, believe me, bring you on in absolute leaps and bounds. You will get my unique communication framework methods, which are so powerful, and you will always have those tools to fall back on, and you will never again feel like drowning in challenging emotional things that come up with people, because you will have all of the tools to navigate them. You will have a private Facebook group where all of the course content will be organized, and you will get lifetime access on all of the materials on the full program, so you can come back to that absolutely anytime you need to. The full price of the 10-week program, ladies, is $1,497. However, for those of you who are with me now on the masterclass, there is an exclusive offer. It is only available to you as the masterclass attendees, which is $997. Or it's 3 installments of $333 over 3 months, meaning that you will have the opportunity to save £500 on the full price. And I'm offering 0% interest, meaning if you go for the payment plan to make it nice and easy for yourself, you get to save 500. And I'm doing 0 interest if you book on by the 27th of April, so next Thursday. If you do pay in full, I'm also offering 1 free 60-minute one-to-one with me. Super powerful. It's worth $111 if you paid for it as a standalone session. So you get to save another $111 there. And in a nutshell, that is the offer. If you are needing to wait until you get paid and you want to do like a deposit to secure your space, just reach out to me after the masterclass today, and we can talk about a payment plan that feels comfortable. If you're feeling like, yes, I want to go for this sounds fantastic, I need to do it in a way that's like doable for me, you might want to just put a deposit down of 100 and then you secure your space. Because spaces are limited on my programs. I'm just going to come out of here. Spaces are limited on my programs because I like to make sure that I can really give you like that one-to-one lens from me to you, that you really get that full focus from me. So it's important to me to make sure that I keep my numbers limited. And I've already got 3 of my current clients who've already booked on. So just be aware that within the next week or so, these places will go. And if you're feeling a yes, then reach out to me and I will be really happy to talk it through with you if you've got any questions. And I also wanted to share with you a couple of the beautiful things that some of my clients have said, the people who've done full programs with me, because the transformations that I'm seeing in these ladies are just next level. So this is Cindy, and something that she said that absolutely made me cry. She said, if I have ever done anything right in my life, I think it was investing in these classes with you. This space is priceless. How fortunate I am to have found this beautiful group of the strongest women, something I've never felt before. And this is something that you will experience on my programs. And Beatrice will tell you, Belinda will tell you, some of the ladies who are here now will tell you that the love in my containers on my programs, which is a much more intimate number of people than on a masterclass, the love, the support, and the connections that develops between the women that work in my spaces is like on another level. Even now, I see like how the women who've worked with me continue to support each other and love on each other, and it's absolutely beautiful. This is Michelle. Michelle came to me about 9 months ago. I could already see the light in this woman. I could already see so much potential in this woman, but she couldn't see it fully in herself. And she was really keeping herself kind of in the shadows. She was not allowing herself to shine. Most importantly, she'd really lost her connection with her magical child. I worked intensively with her for a few months to help her to reconnect to her own magic and light. And now Michelle is just absolutely flying. Just last week, she had 2 chapters published in a book called Soul Alchemy. So she's an editor and a writer who's now got a published book. And she voice noted me a couple of days ago just to say, like, all of these incredible things that are happening in my life now literally stem back to me working with you and you helping me to reconnect with my light and my magical child and to trust my gifts. So Michelle's now a published author, which is freaking amazing. Beatrice, who's here with us right now, I find it hard to read this one without crying, but the transformation in Beatrice is unbelievable. When Beatrice came to me last year, you'll agree with me, Beatrice, on this one. Like, her self-confidence was super low. She was keeping herself very much in the background, not shining, not daring to use her voice, not daring to step forwards, be, in her empowerment and her magnetism. And I met Beatrice for the first time about 10 days ago, was it, Beatrice? She came to Manchester and we met in person for the first time, which was amazing. And Beatrice was saying to me, I just cannot believe how much my life has changed since I've been working with you. Beatrice is now a conscious parenting coach herself. She's had the courage to launch herself as a coach since we've worked together. She's got her own Facebook group. She's being invited into other people's mums groups to do masterclasses on conscious parenting. Beatrice did not have the confidence to even open her mouth fully in the groups when she first came into the spaces. So this is the level of change that I am talking about. And to bring it back to the boundaries, because today's topic, the main focus for today is boundaries. I want to come back to that. One of my clients last year who did my boundaries program, whose name is not Kate, but on the slide I've put Kate. The photograph is not her, but she was more than happy for me to share her transformations. When Kate came to me last year to do the boundaries program, her starting point was repeated unwanted physical touch from men. She was constantly finding herself in situations where she was going out, getting drunk, ending up in bed with men, waking up the next day feeling all kinds of wrong, dirty, and shame around it, and never having the ability to say no to men's advances. This was a very, very toxic pattern that she had been in for her whole adult life. She was like mid-40s by the time she came to me. She'd never had a committed partner. And she was absolutely exhausted with constantly being dragged into her family scenario to help support her mother with dementia and feeling guilty about saying no to her dad and her sister. So constantly overriding her own energy budget to step in and do extra shifts looking after her mother, even though it was absolutely exhausting her. Okay. So that was the starting point for this client. After she did the boundaries program, we had a check-in, we had a one-to-one, and the one-to-one was a couple of months later. Some of the things that she shared with me absolutely blew my brain. Since we'd done the boundaries work together, she had employed a male tantra teacher for some one-to-one tantra sessions where she was practicing working with her boundaries consciously in a physical, intimate scenario, but it was with somebody she was paying so that it would be easier for her to practice using her no. And with that tantra teacher, for the first time in her life, he touched her in a certain way and she said no. This was absolutely huge for her because to date in her life, she had never managed to say no. She also managed to put really clear boundaries in place with her family. And she let them know that she was available to take her mum out on a Sunday afternoon once a week at 1:00. She would spend 3 hours with her. She would bring her back. And that was her availability at that time. That was what she was able to give at that point in her life. Not more, not less. I could not believe how clear and clean her boundaries had become since doing the program. The best part of all, she is now, for the first time in her life, in a committed relationship with a guy that she's now been in for around 12 months. And I see the photos of them together on Facebook, and it is just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable to see the transformation in this woman. So I wanted to share that with you today because I really want you to see how clearly and how tangibly the women who step into my programs see these shifts in their lives. Okay. So I'm going to bring it back to the sacred yes. We've looked at the side of the boundaries coin of the no, right? We've looked at the leaky boundaries and we've looked at why we're afraid to use our no in case we disappoint people or anger people. Now, for the final segment of this masterclass, I want to look with you at where has your clear yes gone? What happened to your clear yes that you had when you were in those magical child years? Okay. So I'm going to give you an example of when I was around 4 years old and we went on holiday to Portugal. And on one particular day, we were out on a boat trip with groups of other people. And little 4-year-old me wandered off on this boat trip and found some little Portuguese children who were playing, jumping off a kind of plank, a little platform on the boat, and laughing and squealing and all that. And I was magnetized to go and play with those children. So I had essentially wandered off. My mum didn't know where I was. She went into abject panic, as any mother would, was hurtling around the boat like a madwoman trying to locate me. And when she finally did locate me at the back of this boat, jumping off this plank with these kids, she went absolutely ballistic, right? Again, she shouted at me very, very severely for wandering off and not telling her. Now, this is a very natural reaction for the parent, okay? We understand that because we're adults. But again, for the purposes of this masterclass, we're looking at this from the perspective of the child that you once were or that I once was, where naturally we followed our yes. Naturally, we saw other children playing that we wanted to play with, and we followed. We saw a tree that we wanted to climb and we started climbing it. We saw a cake that we wanted to eat. We started to eat it, right? We saw a person that we wanted to hug and we hugged them. We wanted to dance in a restaurant. We danced in a restaurant. We wanted to paint on the walls with a lipstick. We painted on the walls with a lipstick. In those early formative years, the thread of the yes, the thread of the magic, the thread that led us to the desires that we wanted to explore, i.e. playing with new friends, exploring a different part of a boat. We followed that with innocence. But what happened was that when we followed the yes with that innocence, boom, the parent came and superimposed in this situation onto the fact that we'd followed our bliss, our yes, our intuition, and wandered in that direction. The parent yanks the child out of that, shouts at them for disappearing without explaining where they were going, shouts at them so severely that they are like a frozen rabbit in the headlights, and shames them in front of all the other children by shouting at them for being so naughty, right? You don't do that. You don't do that. So what happens again? Two things, right? This is really important to get these 2 points. Number one, what happens for the child in that situation is a frequency drop, which feels like a trauma. Because 1 minute, the child is in their magical energy, playing in the sunshine, on the boat, with new friends, Portuguese friends, can't speak a word of English. I couldn't speak a word of Portuguese, but at that age, who cares? Because we're jumping off a plank, having the time of our life, right? So the child is in this high, happy, delightful energy. But as soon as the parent approaches the child with fear, which is being presented as anger, and starts screaming in the child's face, now the child is paralyzed with fear, the child experiences a frequency drop from joy to terror, from joy to shame. And this frequency drop was so traumatic to our nervous system in those early years that we quickly learned, if I follow my natural impulses, if I let myself express fully or loudly or according to my own intuition, there's a very high chance I'm going to get shouted at, shamed, told to shut up, told to stay closer to the parent, not wander off, not follow your intuition, not play with people you don't know. Okay? Now, all of this from the parent's point of view is completely understandable. But from the child's perspective, and we are still holding these codes now, what's happened in your psyche is that you have now linked following your yes, following your impulses, fully expressing, trusting your inner guidance. You have now associated that with shame, criticism, judgment, fear, punishment, the other side of you following your yes. Does this make sense? Very often, when we were children and we got shouted at like that for just following our own impulses, it was because, of course, the parent was afraid of what might have happened. The parent was afraid of the child being taken away or, falling off the back of the boat or whatever. But the child was not feeling any fear. I, as the child, was not feeling any fear. But the adult, without intending to, superimposes that fear on the child. And now that gets coded with, when I explore new experiences, when I connect with new people, when I go to places like the back of the boat that I haven't explored before, there is, according to the adult, a perception of danger. That perception of danger gets imprinted onto the child. And now to this day, we are all holding this code. If I follow my intuition, if I follow my inner guidance, If I let myself be spontaneous, there is danger and punishment on the other side. And it's instilled in us a fear of the unknown that we didn't have when we were little. When we were little, as long as we were following our own intuition, the unknown was very exciting. Let me know if this is resonating. So the rigid boundaries work that we're going to be moving into on the program, for those of you that are stepping forward into the next stage of this work, the other side of the boundaries work, which I absolutely love supporting people with, by the way, it's very, very rewarding for me to do this work with you, is how do we make it safer together for you to start to explore some of these edges, to start to take more risks, to start to put mechanisms in place for yourself so that you feel safer as an adult to expand. Because now you are the parent. There is no external parent assessing danger on your behalf. It's you. But that hypervigilant parent archetype has dropped into your psyche, and it's actually blocking you in so many ways from living more fully. So what we do when we go deeper into this boundaries work, particularly this aspect of it, is how do we safely, but in a more exciting way, self-parent? How do we self-parent in a more expansive way? 111. So that we're actually allowing ourselves back into the frequency of magic. We pinch ourselves off an awful lot from the frequency of magic because of the fear of the unknown. So it's about healing the fear of the unknown by learning to inner parent yourself so that you're taking calculated risks rather than wild ones, but that you're not staying so restricted in your career, in your relationships, in your relationship to life, that you feel like you're absolutely stifling. If life feels flat and boring and uneventful, it's because you're not playing with your edges. We are meant to play with our edges. We are meant to be constantly expanding and challenging ourselves and exciting ourselves with new, fresh experiences, new frontiers, new ways that we can reveal ourselves to ourselves when we are living in a more expansive way. And this is all stuff that I'm here to support with if you're feeling like this is something you really want to be moving into. So in a nutshell, today is just a little introduction, if you like, to those two sides of the boundaries work. Tomorrow, we have the Q&A, which is going to be 6 p.m. on Zoom. I'm going to drop the Zoom password for you in the group today so that you've got it. So we'll just meet on Zoom, which will be really nice tomorrow because I'll be able to see your faces. We'll be able to see each other's faces and we'll be able to interact in a beautiful way. And what I would love you to do tomorrow evening on the Zoom is bring any questions. I'm going to do a Q&A thread in the group actually after we finish this session this morning. So on that Q&A thread, drop any questions or anything you want me to talk more about. And also, I would love you to bring to the session tomorrow evening anything around what has spoken to you most loudly on this masterclass. What aspect of the boundaries work has really resonated with you and made you curious to explore more? What aspect of the drama triangle are you seeing yourself in? And how has the masterclass from yesterday given you any new insights into how you can start to become more aware and start to begin to step out of these transactional relationships with people so that you can step more boldly into sovereign to sovereign relationships, which is where we are heading as we move more into the 5D consciousness as a collective. And also, I'm super curious about the conscious communication session that we did on Thursday and the language suggestions that I gave to you around how we can express our needs and how we can meet each other's needs in a more conscious way. So any little gems that you got from that one, I'd love to hear about that tomorrow at 6. Let me know if you will be coming. Thank you so, so much for being here, ladies. It's my absolute pleasure to talk with you and to share this work with you and to sow these seeds in your mind. For some of you, the seeds being sown at this stage will be more than enough. For some of you, you may be like, hell yes, I want to go deeper into this and I want to actually see these changes. And that's what happens when we walk together for a longer period of time. That's when you really start to see the transformations, is when you and I are moving along this path together, and you get my support and you get my attention and you get that long-term coaching. That's how you really start to see embodied change. However, there has been loads and loads of really valuable stuff that I've shared with you on this masterclass to give you an introduction to how I work and to meet with you. And I'm really excited to spend one last session with you tomorrow on the Q&A. So I'm wishing you a wonderful day. Thank you so, so much for choosing to spend your time with me this morning. I appreciate it more than you know. And I will see you tomorrow. I hope.